This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Hillary versus rape victims. Backed by popular demand, Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and he is the editor and writer of the blog The Point at frontpagemag.com. Daniel Greenfield, what a privilege to have you back on the Glazov Gang.
The privilege is really all mine. It's great to be back here one more time.
Thank you, Daniel. Let us begin. You've been writing some blogs recently on this whole mess, an embarrassing mess. I guess a lot of other words can be used. Let's begin in the beginning with what we want to talk about here. You had a blog where you were talking about how Hillary earlier on courted publicity by insisting that all rape victims have the right to be believed. Let's start there.
Well, the Clintons have a long, dark, ugly history, particularly with harassing women, particularly with assault. And Hillary Clinton tried to jump on the publicity bandwagon earlier in her election when she said that all rape victims have the right to be believed. And of course, it turned out that they did, except for the women that her husband raped, the women that were assaulted by various associates of theirs, including Jeffrey Epstein, and including, of course, the 12-year-old girl who was raped and beaten to a coma by her client rather early on in her career.
Okay, now, Daniel, let's get to this issue now. Let's move next when she says people need to be believed. Now, one thing's for sure, Bill Clinton was a sexual predator. We could agree on that. What did Hillary Clinton do to the women who made the allegations of what he had done to them?
Well, she conducted what was proverbially known as the war room, targeting women who complained about Bill Clinton, going after them, using their personal information, and really trying to very much personally destroy them. They, at the time, I believe, referred to it as managing Bill Clinton's bimbo eruptions, quote unquote.
Now, you report in one of your blogs how former advisor Dick Morris said that Hillary actually engaged in quote unquote blackmail to try to force women to recant their stories. Do you have an example there? I mean, this is something else.
Well, they actually went after these women by any means necessary. It comes from Dick Morris, it comes from other people, but the upshot of it was that they used personal information, they intimidated them, in some cases they would bribe them, they did anything necessary just to shut it down, just to shut down any reports about Bill Clinton. Ultimately, they weren't successful, but even to this day, a lot of these women are afraid to come forward.
Thank you, Daniel. And, you bring up in your work always these glaring hypocrisies, glaring double standards of the left, overall how heartless the left is, because the left is so concerned with feminism. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to Bill Clinton and what he did, what Hillary Clinton did in this context, somehow feminism goes out the window. You bring up the example of feminist columnist Jill Filipovic, who was reporting recently that Bill Clinton, that the allegations and even reporting on what Bill Clinton did in terms of, his, you could say, predator activities, reporting on this, according to feminist columnist Jill Filipovic, is actually sexist. What is the logic here?
There is no logic there, but the perverted argument there is basically that anything that helps the ideology of the left, and this is really what we can now call feminism now is, it's basically a particular form of community organization targeting women, just as you have groups like the NAACP, which basically community organize the Black community, or Black Lives Matter. So their argument basically is that when it comes down to it, is that anything that inhibits the agenda of the left is sexist, it's racist, it's one thing or another. As a practical matter, that means basically arguing that rape victims are evil, that in fact, as another writer I blogged earlier today wrote, that Bill Clinton raping a woman does not make him a bad feminist, as long as he apologized afterward. I mean, I'm literally quoting this.
Just even in terms of Hillary and her stances on women, very interesting that she's for women's rights and yet accepts money from the Saudis and other guardians of Sharia. And you report how, the people that give her money, Howard Gutman, Jeffrey Epstein. Can you talk about this?
Absolutely. One of her donors was also an Obama donor, Howard Gutman, was appointed ambassador to Belgium, where he basically defended Islamic anti-Semitism. But he was also allegedly making contact with underage boys and girls for sexual reasons. The investigation of that was covered up by Hillary's close people, many of the same people who are on the Benghazi mess. And this whole thing was very closely shelved. And Jeffrey Epstein was just in a really obscene case. He was Bill Clinton's basically jet chauffeur. And he had this private island where he was conducting what basically would be considered mass assaults. He got a jail sentence that's really paradigmatic of just how corrupt the Democratic Party is. He got to spend nights in the hotel room, which was described as a jail cell. And he was able to just travel around the country during the day and even go to his private island, as long as he was back in his hotel room / jail by night.
Very interesting. The recent release of an audio tape where Hillary laughs while discussing her defense of a vicious rapist who beat a 12-year-old girl into a coma. Tell us about this.
This was really one of Hillary's earliest cases. She took the case of this drifter who rode a 12-year-old girl into a car. He beat her into a coma. He raped her. The violence that he inflicted on her was so bad that she was never able to have children again. Hillary defended him by basically accusing the girl of being mentally ill, of fantasizing about him. And in addition to that, she was on tape. She was caught on tape really laughing about how she got this guy off, this really horrible monster off, by using various tricks, by using various dirty tricks to do it. And to her, this was just a great laugh, and this was just a good time. And this is really just the complete lack of empathy she has for women, for girls, just for other human beings who are not named Hillary.
Daniel, let's reiterate this one more time. Hillary had made it clear in the interview, the audio is now out, that she knew her rapist was guilty, and she laughed about it.
Yeah, she laughed about him passing a lie detector test when she very obviously knew that he was guilty. So she laughed about that. She laughed about the way that the forensic lab lost evidence that would have actually indicted her client, that really contained was covered with the blood of a 12-year-old girl. I mean, what kind of monster laughs about this? What kind of monster has such a total lack of empathy for a 12-year-old girl who's been through the worst nightmare anybody could imagine?
Now, this victim has grown up and come forward. One of the things she says is that Hillary took her and brought her through hell.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton, she said that Hillary Clinton really destroyed her life. It's not just that she was assaulted. It's not just that the man who did it got away with it, but got away with it thanks to Hillary Clinton. But on top of everything else, really, Hillary Clinton tried to defend him by going after her, by going after a 12-year-old girl who'd been beaten into a coma. On top of everything else, this is really beyond evil. It's beyond anything we can even understand it.
And yet we don't see too much discussion of this on CNN and MSNBC and on the front page of the New York Times and of the Washington Post. Neither do we see something about what you wrote about the other day at The Point. Hillary shouting over a rape victim that was trying to ask her questions at a campaign rally.
It was yet another ugly scene. This was a woman who had been a Democrat, who had just really left the Democratic Party over the Clintons, over Bill's sexual assaults, and she was a rape victim herself. She's repeatedly tried to ask Hillary about this, and Hillary has brushed her off. And in this case, Hillary's basically talking over her, trying to silence her.
Daniel, you're keeping an eye on these things. Hillary Clinton's campaign website had a certain sentence on there a while back about how rape victims need to be believed and have a right to be believed. Recent evidence suggests that this sentence has been taken off of Hillary Clinton's campaign website.
Yeah, apparently they decided that maybe rape victims don't have the right to be believed after all if it inhibits Hillary Clinton's career and indicts Bill Clinton. So that slogan was removed.
You think that this is some kind of a coincidence?
Obviously, it's not a coincidence. You might even argue that it's an admission.
Very interesting. Your conclusions on all of this, on Hillary Clinton versus rape victims and the silence of the media?
It's very ugly. It really inhibits the entire Hillary Clinton message that her victory would be some kind of victory for feminism. Her victory would be some kind of victory for women. she would be some sort of role model for girls. She's not none of the above. She's a monster, and her behavior toward women has been nearly as monstrous as that of her husband or some of their rapist friends.
Daniel, before we go, and I don't mean to be, mean or do this in a negative way. I just want to bring up Monica Lewinsky for a second. She's kind of been forgotten, but not forgotten. And in the end, she kind of turned out to be a tragic victim, Daniel, because to the best of my memory, she never got married, didn't have children. And when we think about it, it's very difficult, the situation she ended up in life, where, let's say a husband or a fiance comes in and says, oh, meet my fiance or my wife, Monica Lewinsky. She is, what is the person going to say? It's funny in one way, but it's very tragic what ended up happening.
It's absolutely sad and tragic, and the Clintons have left this wrong trail of destroyed lives and shattered lives behind them. It reminds me really of The Great Gatsby and really the line about Daisy Buchanan, her husband, just leaving a whole bunch of destroyed lives in their wake. The Clintons are still doing it. They're still at it. The moment they're caught in a scandal, they farm somebody else out. They dump some other loyalist out in front of the bus. And these people are basically willing to destroy anybody just to move forward.
Your thoughts on Anthony Weiner, just since he's part of the whole package here?
Again, it's really very sad. It's really very tragic that we've actually come to this point. And really, in times past, the Clintons would have never even gotten this far. And when they left office, even most Democrats were absolutely disgusted by them. And now they're being coronated over again. It really shows the Democratic Party has dropped its standards even below what they were when the Clintons finished their term.
Yeah, and I guess what I meant there a bit is in some ways who Anthony Weiner is, it's no coincidence in terms of his extracurricular activities that he's kind of, the themes are all a little bit similar here, correct?
The Clintons seem to attract like-minded people, which Weiner certainly is in most of the worst possible ways.
Daniel Greenfield, you are an honorable and wise gentleman. Thank you for coming on the Glazov Gang.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. Remember, this is a fan-generated show. If you like the program, go to jamieglazov.com to support the show. And you should be ashamed of yourself if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.